best available remaining free agents. And I said during the throw to break last time that we wouldn't include DeAndre Hopkins. I was wrong.
Liar.
But not Tom Brady. So Hopkins technically will be free, barring an unexpected trade at 4 p.m. Eastern today. What's the best fit? Who should Hopkins sign with?
I don't think my answer differs from something we've talked about really from the start, where, I just look at Buffalo or Kansas City to still be the two spots where if he wants what he wants ultimately, where, hopefully that, and again, I know he wants to be paid somewhat respectably, but at the same time, capitalize on that next contract that we've talked about in the past with OBJ. You want to put yourself in a position where, you're going to, get stats. You're going to be in some big games. People are going to see what you can do on the field and some of those marquee matchups on primetime football. And of course, you're a part of two teams that have a great offense and quarterback that want to throw the ball. So those are still the two teams I look at for DeAndre Hopkins. And the Bills specifically, to me, are a team that I think could really, really use him. The Chiefs could use him, but they're not bad at the receiver department. They got a little everything, and we saw them be just fine last year. But the Bills, I think, like we've both discussed a lot, there is a definite need. And I also think the DeAndre Hopkins thing maybe would help Stephon Diggs. And if there is an issue there, that might actually just, help that situation, flourish or whatever it's stuck in right now, just end, I guess is what I want to say.
My son and I were talking about it on Friday night, and he said, will Diggs be upset if they sign Hopkins? And it's like, well, he shouldn't be, because that gives him the help that he presumably is looking for. Right. Now, if he gets overshadowed by Hopkins, see, there's a line there. If all of a sudden Hopkins is the new number one and he's the guy that's getting 15 targets a game and not Diggs, then there's a point where a different type of frustration comes out. The current frustration is lack of wins relative to what they should be with Josh Allen as the quarterback. The other type of frustration that could manifest instead is the fact that I'm not the guy anymore. It's DeAndre Hopkins. But I think that is a problem that Stephon Diggs would be willing to tolerate more than just not the team being as good as it can be. The problem, though, is will they go all in? Will they take that chance with a guy who's got injury issues? We talk from time to time about how it's possible the Bills still feel a little burned by the risk they took on Von Miller. They pay all that money. He gets a torn ACL. Did that make them hesitant about OBJ? Is it making them hesitant about DeAndre Hopkins or other veteran players? But the Bills and the Chiefs, we know, were at least in it, reportedly talking to the Cardinals before the draft about possibly trading for DeAndre Hopkins. So, and here's the other side of it too. Whoever gets him keeps the other team from getting him. Right. There's an extra net benefit here. Not only do we have him, they don't. The Chiefs have him, the Bills don't. The Bills have him, the Chiefs don't. The Ravens have him, and neither the Bills nor the Chiefs have him. And remember, there was a report at one point or a discussion, a talking point, something about Lamar wanting both Beckham and Hopkins. Now, they have Zay Flowers with the first-round pick. They have Nelson Aguilar. They've got two tight ends. I don't know if the receiver room is full in Baltimore at this point. I would think so. But still, if you bring him in, you keep him away from the Chiefs and the Bills. And that's one of the things you have to think about if you're going to be competing with those teams. We have him, we use him, and the Chiefs don't have him, and the Chiefs can't use him. But to me, the Chiefs make the most sense. Yeah, I mean, it makes a ton of sense. It does. Now, there's a few things that play into the situation that I think are, worth noting too. One, where is DeAndre Hopkins? I don't think he's just going to go to whoever gives him the biggest payday, right? And you talked about the OBJ contract and all that causing an issue. Well, yeah, it's going to cause an issue for this new team who wants to sign him as well, right? And I don't think he's just going to go to a team who pays him the most money. He wants to be a part of a winner, I think, at this point of his career. But how much money does he want? That's going to be part of this equation as well. And the Chiefs and Bills, they're towards the bottom of football and available cap space. Now, I know they can find ways to finagle things. They always do. But,
Also, yeah, it's going to be about finding that right balance and what he's asking for long term. Is it a 1-year deal? All of those type of things play into this situation. And yeah, I'll be interested to see where he goes. I do still think DeAndre Hopkins is a hell of a football player. Maybe not one of the top 5 receivers in the game anymore, but damn, he's still real good, and he showed us that last year when he came back from the PED suspension.
And it's going to be difficult for him to process because he was once upon a time, not that long ago, the highest paid receiver in football with a new money average of $27 million per year. He's been leapfrogged by the likes of Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. And earlier in the offseason, I think you and I believe that his mindset was, I want to be traded in part because somebody else is going to pay me along the lines of Adams and Hill. Now we're at a point where nobody wanted to even touch the remaining 2 years of his contract, and it's possibly because they knew he had expectations for even more on the way in.
I think so.
Part of it is you got to get the guy to understand where he currently fits. And he may not like it, but he doesn't fit with the highest paid players in the sport. He just doesn't. He's got to come to terms with that. When he comes to terms with that, that's when it's time to do business. And see, because these teams deal with personalities like that, all shapes and sizes and sorts of people over the years, they've built up an institutional knowledge of how to play these negotiations. They know where DeAndre Hopkins fits. Sometimes you got to let it simmer. Sometimes you got to step back. Sometimes you just got to let it play out. You don't want to rush. If you rush, the guy's going to think, man, I'm worth more than maybe I even thought I was worth. You got to be coy, and you got to let him come to terms with the fact that it may just not be there in the amounts he's thinking. And that's what makes this fascinating, because there's an opportunity for a land rush, but the more anxious the teams look, the more he's going to want. So maybe this just has to sit for a while. Maybe this just has to wait. We're almost at the end of the offseason programs. Maybe this is something that goes a month.
I don't know. Be shocked.
I don't know.
Yeah.
It could go quickly. It could take a while. But a lot of it is getting DeAndre Hopkins to the right mindset that he accepts the best offer he gets. And the other wrinkle, too, here, because he said at one point, he was on Pat McAfee's show, and he was talking about how he has an agent again. He had one earlier in his career, then he didn't have one, and now he has one again. Under the NFLPA records, he has none. And I keep hearing St. Omni's involved, and teams are leery about communicating via email with Hopkins because everybody's figured out this game now. Guys go set up burner accounts in their own name, and they use their agent who isn't certified by the NFLPA to pretend that they're them and to trade offers and communicate back and forth with the team. My understanding is there are multiple teams that will only talk directly to Hopkins, speak to him directly, no emails, no texts, just talking. And that complicates things as well if that's part of this broader dance that needs to be done before he can do a deal. But what's funny? All the teams we're talking about are AFC teams. Is there an NFC team that you can think of that would fancy him or would jump in? Hey, this is going to be a difference maker for us.
Well, I mean, you look at Philadelphia and San Francisco, right? They're not going to be looking for anything like that. You get into Dallas, I don't think they're going to look at anybody there in that department. I don't know if I do see a team. This is where I got into, hey, Carolina, it would make sense. That's who I thought of when I was bringing up teams that are like maybe would throw some money at him, help your young quarterback, but would he want to go to that situation, right? I could see some of those teams maybe going, hey, come here and we'll pay you money and you can help out Bryce Young and help out our football team, but I don't think he's going to want to be a part of those situations. So I don't see one in the NFC that really jumps out to me. Seattle, things are full there. I think the Giants, I don't know. I don't imagine them going there. I think they're set too. I don't know. I don't picture them to be a team that's going to throw $20 million out to a receiver right now who also was with Billy O'Brien, and there was an issue there, and then a lot of these coaches know Billy O'Brien. So those are the other things I think about too with DeAndre Hopkins.
What about the Lions?
I know.
I think I saw over the weekend that they're doing their homework on him. That's really not news. Doing the homework isn't really news. Pursuing him would be the news. Would he fit with the Lions? They're not going to have Jamison Williams for the first 6 weeks of the season.
He would. I think that's the team that pops right there. I think that's it. No Jamison Williams, right? He is tough and physical. Goff is stand in the pocket, let me throw the ball down the field, and he's not afraid to pull the trigger into some tight windows that way. I could see that being a fit there. I certainly can. That one would make sense in the NFC. I think that would by far be the one that makes the most sense to me.
One more that comes to mind that we haven't discussed. Former teammate Deshaun Watson, current quarterback of the Cleveland Browns. That's one that's kind of gurgling, which, the Browns are just this curiosity for me. We don't know what they're going to be.
No.
We're talking about all these other teams. They're in a great spot to be overlooked and disregarded. If they would get DeAndre Hopkins, all of a sudden they elbow their way into the conversation in the AFC if they would show up with DeAndre Hopkins one day in the next few weeks. All right, we had more that we want to get to. Let's get to a couple more before we end the segment. Jadeveon Clowney, number 1 overall pick in the 2014 draft. He recently said he'd like to go back to the Texans. D'Amico Ryans, the new head coach, was very non-committal when asked about Jadeveon Clowney. Who should he sign with?
Yeah, well, I don't think he's not a fit for the D'Amico Ryans defense there, right? Jadeveon Clowney is still a good football player, no doubt about it. But top-notch pass rusher? No, not necessarily. That's where, stops the run well, physical still. Are you going to get 10 sacks a year with a guy that's got a degenerative knee, an issue like that? No, you're not. So that's the thing with Jadeveon Clowney. He's unfortunately at that point in his career where, the money, the injury history, all of that is a little skeptical. So, do I look at teams at the top of the, salary cap issue and go, hey, the Bears could use a guy but do they really want to spend money on a guy, that's towards the end of his career and might not be able to help them out? I think it's more of he's got to find a role-playing, 3-4 type defense. Like your Minnesota Vikings would make sense to me to a degree. Right? You got Danielle Hunter, right? You got Marcus Davenport, where there is a little bit, injury and concern with his shoulder. Maybe you get that, get a Jadeveon Clowney to add depth to the rotation. He still plays, but you're not depending on him starting and playing 70 snaps a game. It's a situation like that, but he's a guy here that I don't think, he's not getting signed until training camp starts. I don't think anything's happening here anytime soon, Mike.
I feel bad for him. He never got a big payday from the Texans other than the contract he received as the number 1 overall pick. But we know that starting in 2011, those deals aren't nearly as big as they used to be. The Texans never gave him the reward. They used him for 5 years. I don't think they franchise tag him. I can't remember. But then he got into the 1 year at a time.
I think they did franchise him one time.
2 years with the Browns.
Yeah.
He was with Seattle. He was with Tennessee. He just kind of goes from team to team at this point. I was surprised he came back for a second year in Cleveland, but that ship has sailed based on some of the things he said on his way out the door. He can still be very disruptive. The problem is how many games are you going to get out of him? That's the problem.
Exactly, right.
He plays so hard, and, he's got that long, lean body, and he's getting double-teamed, and he gets banged up, and you're not going to get 17 games out of him. Maybe you will, but you shouldn't bet on it.
It's iffy.
So
right.
What are you willing to pay for a guy that you're going to have to manage if you want to keep him around for most of the season, especially now that he's entering what will be year 10 of his career?
Yeah, right. That's where I think when it's all said and done, we're talking about a 1-year deal worth low millions dollars, right? $2-3 million deal, maybe 4, something like that. And you just got to see what shakes out. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to peg Dallas Cowboys. Would they want to take a chance on a Jadeveon Clowney? They could maybe use a little something to bolster their pass rush. Would they want to throw some money that way? It's a risky investment because of what you said. And I think that's where it's going to take probably an injury or a team to really realize, wait, we do have an issue here. We played a preseason game. We're weak at the edge position on defense. Let's call Jadeveon Clowney. The problem is I'm not sure he's the best player available on the market right now at that position. Leonard Floyd's out there, and Leonard Floyd's younger and better right now than Jadeveon Clowney, and that hurts Clowney too.
All right, let's pivot to him then. Leonard Floyd, who do you think he should sign with?
Gosh.
We're talking about the same teams. Is it a different fit? What do you think?
Well, it's a 3-4-ish type of football player again, right? And this is again a guy that he can flirt with 10 sacks. He's more of an 8, 7, 9.5 sack type of guy, right? Who is awesome at playing the run. I mean, off the charts playing the run, and he's good in pass coverage. I mean, he's one of these hybrid type players where, I just look at teams like Atlanta. Well, Atlanta, they could use some guys to bolster their front seven. Why wouldn't they be interested in them? I look at the Cincinnati Bengals a little bit and go, hey, you're a team that couldn't get after the quarterback quite to the same extent as the year before, would you jump in on the Leonard Floyd's, sweepstakes to a degree? But I think it would be a 3-4-ish type team that would want his services more than not, Mike. And, that's where I think it's going to play out. But I think it's another guy that probably waits till training camp before he gets signed.
Despite the importance of the position, you've got Yannick Ngakoue, who's still out there.
Right.
Justin Houston is still out there. I think Melvin Ingram
He's still out there. He
Frank
is.
Clark is still out there.
It's crazy.
There's some pass rushers
There is.
still out there. And it may be that these guys are just in the phase of their career where we know not to waste our time with offseason workouts.
I think so.
This is something that if it's going to happen, it's going to happen during camp, or it's going to happen even during the season, like Ndamukong Suh, even though he's not an edge rusher. Just the idea, guys who have been around, guys who know their bodies, guys who maybe aren't interested in all the banging that happens in the interior of the two lines of scrimmage during training camp. We don't need to rush this. We can wait. And there really are some recognizable names out there, some accomplished players at the pass rusher position that, I don't know. I assume some of them are going to find a home before the season starts.
I would think so.
We'll see.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think, you look at I look at teams like the Denver Broncos. Would they get involved with one of these edge guys that we're talking about here? They certainly could be a team that could probably bolster that position a little bit, and they play that type of style that would want a Clowney or a Leonard Floyd, But yeah, it'd be interesting. Frank Clark, he's still a good football player, like you said. And his ability to just line up wide and get after the quarterback, it's still valuable. But I think it's like what you said. It's we don't need to be there right now. We can work out and lift weights and run and be explosive. We're just pass rushers, and we can wait till a team gets a little desperate. So the money goes up a little bit, and I get paid what I feel I'm worth.
One name we didn't mention is Robert Quinn, and I know he's 33, but he set the Bears' single-season sack record just 2 years ago, and his name never comes up. Remember, he was traded last year to the Eagles, and oh, boy, this is really going to be – boy, well, look at this rotation. He never really did anything there, so that's part of it. When do you ignore the name and the history and recognize it's just not going to work? It's not going to happen. Too much wear and tear, too many years, and we need to move on. Hi, it's Mike Florio. Thanks for watching PFT on YouTube. Hit subscribe for the latest news and analysis from Pro Football Talk.